Raw was this week. There were some decent moments peppered in there, but overall, if you missed the show, you didn't really miss all that much, other than the great Cesaro and Reigns match. So welcome back to 20 by 20. Let's take a look through this week's show.
What?
Raw started off with some talking this week, wouldn't you know? But this time, it was talking by one Samoa Joe, who trash-talked the entirety of the Shield and put himself over and basically baited Reigns into charging into the ring by himself to take him on. But the Bar and Cesaro quickly got involved and started kicking his ass, and then Rollins and Ambrose ran down to try to back their brother up, and they got their asses kicked too. And so they made the Shield look like chumps again. Which is fine, I suppose, because if we know our Shield, they'll undoubtedly get their revenge on them eventually. But is it just because I'm sick, or did the segment just fall a bit flat, like it wasn't the big deal that it should have been? I found myself just going, I guess you could start the show off worse, but it wasn't the most exciting start to a Raw ever, for sure.
What?
Absolution defeated Bayley and Mickie James in a tag team match that lasted all of what, 4 minutes or so? The freaking recap they showed for Joe and the Bar kicking the Shield's ass felt way longer than the time that the woman got this week, and if you watched, you saw that the crowd was pretty dead for it. And you know what? So was I! The entire time, I was just kind of thinking, I want this to be over already so that we can move on to the next bit of the show, because I didn't think anything terribly interesting would happen, and sure enough, nothing interesting really happened. So if you went into this episode of Raw for the ongoing story with these women, well, you could have missed it and saved yourself a few minutes to do something else instead.
What?
Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt did the same thing they did last week, meaning they appeared in a video together and went back and forth about their cosmic energies and light versus dark, and who's lying and who isn't, and who's gonna get robbed on by any razor and who's not, and that was good stuff. It was more of the same stuff, but it was good stuff, and it at least held my attention. It didn't have me wishing for the next segment to start because it was dull or boring. Normally when I say that the live audience is dead, I mean it as in, yeah, it's a bad thing, because that lack of energy transfers over to us watching from our man caves, and, in my case, the Fortress of Solitude. But come on, guys! You couldn't even muster up some excitement for this? To help keep this ball of insanity rolling, this one's on you guys, not on the guys on the screen.
What?
Had an entertaining enough backstage segment this week, in which Gulak was as ridiculous as ever in everything he said, and that's where his money is. It puts a smile on my face. It sometimes even tickles me, and I laugh. He takes me back to the days in which Matt Stryker was doing his teacher gimmick on WWE TV. And the way he concluded that Enzo was giving him a lesson by spinning his words and saying that Enzo mentioning Nia Jax was a way to keep him on his toes? Aha! Good stuff. Oh, and while we're talking 205 stuff, you might have heard that Rich Swann was reportedly arrested for assault and kidnapping, with mugshots to boot, and now he's been indefinitely suspended by the company because domestic abuse stuff is a big no-no with them, and rightfully so. God damn it, Swann, why? I've been following his WWE career since his first appearance back in NXT a few years ago, and I've always thought that the man was incredibly talented and entertaining, even if he was stuck with his lame dancing gimmick, if you could even call it that. It's a real shame. The word is that he's already been released from prison, and here's to hoping that his wife is alright. And as a result of this, we're getting another Fatal 4-Way match this week as well.
What?
Finn Balor went up against Curtis Axel this week, with Bo in his corner, and he went over even though they jumped him before the match started, and that was that. Finn Balor continues to be put in random matches that mean nothing, that are boring as shit, and it's just a waste of everyone's time. All three of these men, not just Finn, could be doing something fun and interesting, and instead, we get squash matches that do nothing for them or for us. Christ, so much for being the first ever Universal Champion meaning anything, huh?
What?
Kane says that him and Strowman aren't normal, but are they genetic freaks? They definitely have no sympathy for each other, but how much of a percentage chance do they have of winning in the main event of the show? And does it spell disaster for one of them?
What?
Cedric Alexander won the Fatal 4-Way match, and he goes on to face Drew Gulak, who was on commentary, next week. and it was another good match. But again, the crowd was crickets again. And not only was it the crowd, it was commentary too. The only saving grace of it was Gulak himself, who I thought was hilarious with the way he was dodging Cole's questions. And Cole, being the prick that he is, kept on pushing and pushing and pushing for the answers he wanted to hear until Graves told him to stop being an ass to him already. Thank you, Corey. We're supposed to believe that Cole's one of the good guys with the way he gets on people? You suck, Cole.
What?
This was another entertaining segment with Gulak, Enzo, and now Nia. Enzo, being an asshole like he tends to be, pretty much told Gulak to shove his championship aspirations up his ass, but he was cut near the end of that sentence by Nia, and I found myself surprised when I actually found the interaction between Enzo and Nia entertaining. So you know what? Bring it on! I'll give it a chance. Although if it goes on for months and months like the dirt sheets claim it might, like the stuff with Alicia Fox and Noam Dar and Cedric and whoever else was involved in that whole fucking train wreck, then it'll get old sooner than later, and I won't want to see it anymore.
What?
Roman Reigns went over on Cesaro, and it was a good match, with Cesaro being one of the current tag champs, and, well, his opponent being the Big Dog! The Big Dog! Hey, did you hear that they call him the Big Dog? I don't think they beat it enough into our heads this week, do you? But yeah, he predictably went over on Cesaro, but it was a good match, and that's about all you can say about this. Roman looked strong! Cesaro was as amazing as he's been for years, and now Sheamus is probably gonna take him on next week, and we'll continue to see Roman carry the strap over his shoulder like it's a sack of shit.
What?
Ah! Look at her! Look at how hurt she looks! What Paige and the gang do to her? Pinch her arm? With acting that great, they should really consider her for a role in the Marine 7 because that series is so obviously the epitome of the movie business.
What?
And shortly after that laughably bad cut to the back with Alicia Fox, Absolution finally went down to the ring to try and get one up on Asuka, but shortly after they got the upper hand on her, all of the Raw women ran down to help her out, and everything looked fine and dandy at first, but then after the first half minute or so, most of the women were standing in the ring in a very awkward fashion, and that was just weird. And why didn't Nia Jax help the rest of the women out? Am I supposed to cheer her or boo her? She helped out the likes of Sasha and Bailey, but she's also trying to take a bite out of Enzo, and I'm not sure I can get behind someone who wants any part of Enzo. I don't know, I just found the whole thing awkward and weird, even when Paige was talking, and the crowd again was just so goddamn quiet for the whole thing.
What?
Yeah, I had my mind in the gutter, so what?
What?
Last week I bitched and moaned about the recaps regarding Kane and Strowman, but you know what? I think they had a pretty good outing in spite of the whole thing. The Big Red Machine and the Monster Among Men beat the crap out of each other. There were multiple choke slams, chair shots, steel step shots, and Braun ended the show by putting Kane through a table. I still don't like that they think it's a good idea to have Kane show any kind of fear, but hey, I guess it's a minor gripe in the overall scene of things. Apparently a triple threat match was confirmed for the Universal title, and some people dislike the idea, but come on! It's Kane, a living legend, Strowman, one of the hottest guys this year, and Brock Lesnar in the ring at the same time. I'm all for it. It'll probably end up predictable in the sense that Kane will end up taking the fall so that neither of the other two men have to, but hey, it's what Kane's been doing for years, and it'll still make for a good show. What did you think of Raw this week? Leave a comment, I like to read that shit. And hit a choke slam on the subscribe button before you go. But until then, this was 20 by 20, and I hope to see your ass here for this week's SmackDown offering as well. So toodles!